Before we get into today's podcast, we just wanted to take a second to pass along our condolences to the family of Mike Tagliere. As most of you know, Tags passed away over the weekend due to complications from COVID-19. Tags always came across as someone who cared about others, and whether you knew him or not, he treated you with respect. He will be missed by us and by many. So take some time today to be good to others and take care of yourselves. We are sending love out to Mike's family and everyone at Fantasy Pros and everyone else, and that's a lot of people, who Tags positively impacted across the years. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. We are breaking down week number 3, going through the big takeaways from this week. And Brandon, I think this was a week where our retool process of trying to be thin in our player pool and trying to be concentrated with a lot of things was the right way to play things, because the running backs we were on happened to do well. And I think that it's good to get that confirmation early on that the process-based way we're handling things is at least correct.
Yeah, I mean, you can spin that honestly any way, and kind of the thing to keep in mind is the way that we're approaching DFS for the NFL slate this year is simply kind of a higher risk approach.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at with the smaller player core. But all the research that you and I have done just shows that you want to make it matter whenever you are on the right plays. This week we got that. I played 4 running backs. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Just 4 running backs. And yeah, if they bust, they bust. But at the same time, if I have 10% or 20% of every running back,
Right.
the literal probability of hitting on a 9-player lineup, just it goes down so much. So that's a big part of our process. If that's not for you, that's not for you. But that is something that worked out in our favor this week.
And those 4 were Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, and Alexander Madison. And I guess it's kind of a bummer is that all 4 of them paid off, but 2 of them didn't score a touchdown. So they still paid off despite not scoring. So it's kind of it's a little bit of like, okay, what could have been, had they found the end zone. But honestly, like, it's a good week regardless. Maybe I'm just being greedy in wondering what could have been with those touchdowns. But either way, I think it's just good to get confirmation that we're handling things the right way in terms of our process for NFL DFS. We're going to break down all the key takeaways, talk about the usages that some backup running backs got this week, because that is our headliner for week number 3, and get you set for week number 4, taking a look ahead, some injuries, taking a look at some guys who got role changes, some returns from injuries like Odell Beckham. We'll talk about all that in just one segment. First, the biggest game remaining in week 3 is the only one. That's the Monday night matchup between the Cowboys and the Eagles. FanDuel is making it even bigger by giving new customers 30-1 odds on either team to win. Simply download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and bet on the most anticipated matchup remaining of the week. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. New users only. $10 first deposit required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus $150. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Restrictions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Tennessee, call the red line at 1-800-889-9789. In West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. And in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. Let's dive into our headliner here from week number 3, which was backup running backs who played big roles. And I think that Thursday was a precursor to this because we saw Chuba Hubbard take over for Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, that sucks. We love Christian McCaffrey. Don't want to lose him again, but at least Chuba Hubbard was in there a lot. Played 38 snaps after McCaffrey left on Thursday compared to 11 for Royce Freeman if you count penalties and non-plays. In those snaps, Chuba Hubbard had 10 rushes and 5 targets and 76 yards in scrimmage. He also had 5 of 11 red zone opportunities, so carries or targets there. Royce Freeman had 5 rushes, 1 target, 25 yards from scrimmage, and 2 of 11 red zone opportunities. So Christian McCaffrey going to miss a couple weeks now, Brandon. The Panthers are going to the Cowboys next week. Based on what you saw in week number 3, name that salary for Chuba Hubbard at Dallas.
I mean, that I should have had this pulled up. I'm a little bit slow today, but the total should be fairly high there. I know that there'll be
not up.
Oh yeah,
they
wouldn't
they
be
play
up,
tonight. Actually,
yeah.
Wait, it is. Just kidding.
Oh, it is. Well, it's the most anticipated matchup
50
of week 3 left. What's the spread there? I'm sure it's pretty large.
4.5. Oh, people just don't. I know. People don't respect Dallas yet, and like I financially will be in a bad spot if my perception of disrespect is misguided. So let's go Cowboys.
Well, I guess like good defense for Carolina, short week for Dallas. I guess.
Oh yeah, it's like a 5-day rest or a 4-day rest differential.
Yeah, that's kind of part of it. I would assume.
That's true.
So they'll probably be able to keep it closer, which would be kind of a big thing. Although Hubbard ran that 30% route rate, which is nice to see, or has a 30% route rate, I guess. So I would probably put Hubbard at that in that matchup, probably like 67 or so.
Yeah, I was thinking 7,000, just because I do think that the role is pretty good, not perfect, obviously, and there is some ambiguity. So I was okay with 7,000. And Chuba Hubbard for week number 4 checks in at $6,300. That's fair. I don't think that's like, oh my gosh, I need him in every line, type of thing, unless we get like something to change. But like, that's a respectable salary that I can feel good about, I think.
Yeah, that's probably one of those where it's we want those tight cores, but I think he would make sense in game stacks. And I know for a fact that other people might not like Dallas that much, but I know you and I love Dallas. So
yeah.
I would say Hubbard in game stacks, but probably not a whole lot of one-offs unless we find out that, we haven't even looked at the slate. We don't look at salaries yet for this. Yeah. But if we find out that he might be the only low salaried back with a role, then that changes things.
Yeah, I would bet that I'm a little bit higher on him than you are, but I think that we're, it's good to still have some degree of skepticism just because, like, they did sprinkle in Royce and they get a full week to prep him and stuff like that. So just keep those things in mind. One backup running back who got a massive workload this week was Alexander Madison. He was basically Dalvin Cook. He had 26 carries and 8 targets. He turned that into 171 yards. He had 44% of the red zone chances. Dalvin should be back this week based on the way people were talking about him over the weekend. And so, like, we don't probably need to worry about Madison for week 4. But if Cook misses time down the line, Kenny Nwangwu may actually be healthy by that time, which would change its dynamic. But I think that, Brandon, what the overall takeaway for me is I had a lot of confidence in Madison going into yesterday based on the way they used him and Abdullah in week number 3 or week number 2 when Dalvin left a couple of times. I was confident there. My level of confidence has increased if we get more time without Cook in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Madison's kind of, we at numberFire have done research on not handcuffing your running backs in season-long leagues. It's just not the best strategy, but he's kind of one of the few exceptions to that rule, I think, because whenever Cook inevitably misses some time, unfortunately, because I love Dalvin Cook, Madison just basically becomes Dalvin Cook light. I wouldn't say Chuba Hubbard is going to become Christian McCaffrey light to quite that same extent, but I think Madison, is kind of a lock button whenever Dalvin Cook is out.
I think the difference between Madison and other quote unquote handcuff running backs is that we know he's the guy. Like, we don't always know that. And that's a big difference. So like, that's part of the reason why we discourage doing that, is because you might be wrong. And then you get a 0 basically.
Right.
So.
And even sticking with Hubbard, like, he's going to have a good role, but how much might Freeman mix in, that kind of stuff. We don't really have to worry about that with Madison. I
think if you give someone that, like, I think Chuba's pretty talented based on what he did in college. So like, I think if you give him like a role similar to what Mike Davis had last year, that'd be pretty fun.
He wasn't he wasn't that high of a draft pick, was he?
No, but like,
that was a concern. Not concerned.
I was also concerned that he went back because, like, he probably could have left after his junior year, and he went back, and I was confused because like he's a college DFS superstar.
Yeah,
I don't know if that taints everything.
That probably does, yeah. But
yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah, I like him, but I was surprised that he went later than I would have assumed.
Same here. I have a high opinion of him going to week 4, though. Sonny Michel played 73% of the snaps in week 3 with Darrell Henderson out, 20 carries and 4 targets. It didn't result in much yardage, but like you don't expect that against the Bucs because they're good. So let's say Henderson can't go in week 4. They are facing Arizona. That game gonna be fun. What would you do with Henderson or Michel in that scenario?
So 73% of the snaps, like you said, 54% of the routes. I have him at an expected FanDuel point output for week 3 of 16.7, but he had just the 9.4. That just speaks to his role.
Yeah.
So salary wise, that's a game we're gonna love. I know that. What's that total? 55?
54.
Okay. So yeah, for Michel, salary probably like 72 if he's gonna play 75% of the snaps.
I think 72 is right because it does seem like I think that it's kind of analogous, like maybe a slightly better version of Antonio Gibson in two senses, in the sense that it's a better offense, but also in the sense that he's going to play like 6 percentage points more snaps than Gibson will. So I think it's a pretty good role, and that's worth $7,200. So I think that I'd actually agree with you, spot on with that salary at 72, and he's $5,800. So I mean, maybe Henderson can go, but like I don't know if that happens.
I mean, at this point, I'm gonna just jot down in my notes to future self. If no Henderson plays Sonny Michel,
Just
don't overthink that.
Check Rams running backs, basically, because that could be really fun. I think getting confirmation that role is Jake Funk did come in for some passing game situations, but like he still got 4 targets, and that's what we need.
And you can be much more okay with that at a salary of 5,800 compared to 7,200.
Right, exactly.
Like Jonathan Taylor.
Wow. We'll talk about that later. How dare you? Peyton Barber was featured in the Raiders' backfield with Josh Jacobs out. Sure. Barber had 23 carries. 6 of those were in the red zone. He went for 111 yards and a touchdown. Added 5 targets, and it's kind of weird that this happened.
It's like a better role than Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, he played 57% of the snaps, and Kenyon Drake's at 43%. And Drake was like still there. He was playing. Maybe that's partly because of overtime, but like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I mean, I think.
They're not in the main slate next week. Thank goodness, because they're facing the Chargers, and you want to run the Chargers. So thank goodness they're not in the main slate.
Yeah, that's the Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So
that also means no Austin Eckler. Bummer.
Well, Vegas played Monday night already, didn't they? Baltimore, wasn't that the Monday night game? Week 1?
I don't remember. I think it was Sunday. Yeah, Monday was the Rams Bears game that week, I think.
I think you have it backwards, but either way,
okay.
Kind of weird for the Raiders, but I think the thing for me is that whenever Josh Jacobs returns on the main slate, I'm going to have even less confidence in him. So that's kind of the big takeaway for me. Not that I'm using Peyton Barber, but that I'm not gonna fall into the trap.
If you were looking desperately for a positive for Josh Jacobs, which I'm not, because like I don't want to use him either. But if you were looking desperately, you could say, "Oh, they've lost confidence in Kenyon Drake and don't want to use him as much. Therefore, Jacobs could have a better role." I don't think that's the takeaway. Just putting that out there. Finally, Trey Sermon doesn't fit the trend because we're talking about dudes who backup running backs who got great roles. His was fine. He played 60% of the snaps, just 10 carries and 3 targets. Kyle Juszczyk was in the backfield quite a bit as like a running back as opposed to his usual like, Swiss Army knife role.
Mm-hmm.
Sermon didn't do much to solidify that role for when Elijah Mitchell gets back, which sounds like it could be next week because he was doubtful as opposed to out for this week. So I feel like we should have no confidence in Trey Sermon entering week 4. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Juszczyk 66% of the snaps, Sermon 60%. Juszczyk also had 2 red zone carries, 2 red zone targets. Sermon just 1 red zone carry, no targets, no red zone targets.
As someone with a lot of Trey Sermon and best ball / season long, it ain't great, Bob. That is for sure. But overall, I think an encouraging week for backup running backs getting good roles. So keep an eye on Chuba Hubbard, see what we can do with him, and then Sonny Michel as well. It seems to be the two guys to monitor heading into week number 4. Let's dive now into some other injuries that impacted the week 3 main slate. Starting with AJ Brown, he hurt his hamstring and missed most of the game, and nobody took advantage. Not a single player on the team, even Julio Jones, had more than 4 targets. Julio played 51% of the snaps. I'm guessing, this is just me guessing here, I'm guessing it's because they were in a positive script and he's not a good blocker, but he also ran just 15 routes compared to Nick Westbrook-Akini had 77% snap rate and 22 routes. Chester Rogers ran 15 routes. I still have some confidence in Julio. Confidence is not the right word. I still think positively of Julio, but like there was a pretty rough roll when they were in a positive script, which is not encouraging. And I feel like it could be spread out behind him, and also losing AJ Brown could hurt this offense in general. So I feel like everyone loses if AJ Brown misses time for Tennessee. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I bring this up a lot now, but it's important because it's easy to forget. Taking AJ Brown off of the field hurts the offense. It should, in theory, lead to volume for quote unquote value plays, but doesn't help the offense. And you need the offense to be moving the ball and be in scoring position for that to matter. And if that's going to be lessened, I know Tannehill had, I think, 3 touchdown passes and was decent himself, but that's not something that we want long term. And one thing I did notice is that Tennessee's 1-score pass rate through the first 3 quarters fell from 55%, which is already pretty low, to 47% this week. So if their goal might be to lean back on Derrick Henry until AJ Brown's back. So that's one thing that I think we should be monitoring.
And the tough part is it may be more rush attempts for Derrick Henry, but like it also increases the odds are a negative game script. It decreases the touchdown expectation. So
yeah,
it's kind of a bummer across the board. So hoping AJ Brown is healthy. They get the Jets next week, which means A, Corey Davis revenge game, but B, we'll probably have to be on Julio, but like it's not going to be an ideal situation, I don't think, despite the good matchup there.
What's salary for Julio in that spot then?
Like 62,
67.
What would you have said?
I probably would have said about 63 because of that. I don't think they'll have to pass the ball a lot. And if he's going to run like 15 rounds, that's problematic. So
he played fine. Like he got some catches, but like, it's just, I don't know.
And just with how this is important, how the Jets offense looks.
And if Elijah Moore is out, they're already out Mekhi Becton. Like their good players are getting hurt. Yeah. And like, that's not good. So we need to lean on that Titans defense to let up some gibbies here.
Yeah.
Also for my Zach Wilson dynasty shares, please save me. Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard both hurt their hamstrings for the Giants and ruled out for the entire game yesterday. Used rotation at receiver. Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney led in snaps, but neither guy played more than 69% of the snaps. Toney led with 28 routes. Golladay had 27. They had said going in that Galladay's conditioning was not up to par, so like maybe that was part of the reason why here. Colin Johnson had 7 targets, one of which was downfield. Colin Johnson's actually kind of fun, so I thought that was exciting. Golladay had 5 targets. Toney had 3. So does this just muddy things up too much for you, or with an extra week of conditioning, can you trust Kenny Golladay if Shepard and Slayton miss time?
So they play the Saints next week.
Yeah.
The total's 43.5. Now, I know the question doesn't always have to be for next week, but I think that it's relevant for this situation because they're just going to be an offense that I only want to target in the right spots.
Right.
This isn't shaping up to be necessarily one of those. They're 7.5 point underdogs with the 43.5 point total. If I was better at math, I could probably tell you how low that implied team total is, but it's going to be okay.
I have it on my sheet. I didn't do math.
Yeah, that's kind of problematic. And Colin Johnson, despite the 7 targets, just a 46% route rate, which is, promising. You want high targets per route, but you also want overall routes.
Yeah.
So I think I would stick with Galladay here and hope that the conditioning improves for him. Not going to use, yeah.
Do you know the first salary I looked up based on this?
Gary Brightwell.
No. Saints defense.
Yeah.
Getting I don't know. I should probably stop making fun of Daniel Jones. Like, he's playing better, and now he's got a bad situation, so that seems mean. Daniel Jones in a negative script against the Saints defense. That's a rough spot. They're $4,800, so like they're kind of high for what I want to do in defense, but I think that's the bigger takeaway here in that matchup specifically. Bummer here. James White hurt his hip and was carted off the field. The backfield mostly irrelevant after White got hurt. Brandon Bolden played 46% of the snaps. He had 4 targets, but 3 carries for -1 yard. Damian Harris played 31% of the snaps and had just 6 carries, which was tied with Mac Jones for the team lead. Not great. 2 targets for Damian Harris. JJ Taylor played 13% of the snaps. He had 1 carry and 2 targets. I was really surprised to see Brandon Bolden get that kind of work. And I don't know if it'll happen again, but it does. I think that the bigger takeaway for me, Brandon, is that there's no path to passing game volume for Damian Harris, like legitimate passing game volume. If James White gets hurt and they go to a special team or over, and no disrespect to Brandon Bolden, who's been like a tremendous special team for a very long time, but like if they go to him over Harris, that's like the biggest red flag you can imagine.
Yeah, so the 18 routes for Brandon Bolden, according to Next Gen stats, I should probably clarify. 18 routes for Bolden, 13 for Harris, 8 for Taylor. Like you said, it really is just a matter of like that's really damning for Damian Harris, especially with the offense overall never being one that we want to target. I mean, Mac Jones did throw the ball downfield 14 times. He was not particularly efficient on those.
Talking about prayer yards, like I'm not talking about I'm talking about like Mac Jones just like chucking up prayers and hoping it comes down. And it did come down, usually on the ground. Went deep 14 times. 3 of those were caught by his team, 1 by the other. So good ratio there. It was like I didn't like Mac Jones initially because he wouldn't go downfield. And now when he did go downfield, it was bad. So maybe you should go back to being boring again. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's up to an 8.4 yard ADOT, which is half a yard deeper than the NFL average, but his efficiency is really bad overall. I actually kind of had the thought yesterday of, I know whenever the team cut Cam Newton and we're turning it over to Mac Jones, everyone got really excited for this offense to be better than it would be, or more fantasy friendly at least. I haven't seen that. I didn't really buy into that. So I don't know if I'm going to be writing off an offense for the whole season because of a slow start that everyone else liked. I don't want to pretend like I know more than everyone else here. That's not what I'm getting at. But do you think there's a turnaround coming, or do you think like
Jacoby Myers has 25% of the targets now. He
Right.
has 33% of the deep targets.
Yes, but who else in this offense?
Oh, no one.
Okay.
Trying to talk myself into one guy.
Okay, because it feels like a Corey Davis situation. It's like any positives you could maybe spin for like Corey Davis and bring back stacks. I know we're spending time on the Patriots now, but I was really thankful for us switching the recap format, so we didn't have to go over the Patriots every single week.
I think Myers at least he's relevant, but like I just don't think they're going to play in the games I want to target because like the defense is good. The offense is terrible. That leads to low totals. I don't want to stack low totals, especially a receiver in a low total game. So although his role is relevant, I don't think this team will be relevant, if that makes sense.
Well,
that's a normal distinction.
Next week, it's the Brady revenge game against this team. But that's Sunday night, so imagine the Patriots on a single game slate that you kind of have to figure out.
I mean, that's going to be rough. Godspeed.
Brandon Bolden MVP.
No. Before we get into that, Juju Smith-Schuster left with a rib injury after 32 snaps for the Steelers, who came in shorthanded because they already thought Deontay Johnson. And what happened was Chase Claypool and Najee Harris got absurd roles. And James Washington played a decent amount. If you look at the snaps here, Chase Claypool played 91% to 81% for James Washington, but the usage is 15 targets for Chase Claypool, 19 targets for Najee Harris. 4 of those were in the red zone. Our colleague JJ Zacharyson, I guess boss is probably more appropriate, sent us a Slack saying that that's the second most targets a running backs got in NFL history. And like initially when I was watching the game, I was like, oh wow, like they're trying to navigate their way around this bad offensive line by getting Najee the ball in space. And I thought that was really cool. And then I was like, oh no, this is the only offense they have. Like it went from being cool to being like, oh wow, they got to bench Ben. I don't know if that's like a fair takeaway, but like it was bad, man. So like Najee had 52 adjusted opportunities. I don't remember ever seeing a number that big in the time that I've been logging this. He had 142 yards in scrimmage. He had 4 of 9 red zone chances. They were all targets. He had no carries inside the red zone. It just, again, it seemed like they were scheming the ball, which is good. And that could translate even if Juju and Deontay are able to come back. But I'm just curious. This offense is so bad, but the volume may be so concentrated. How do you balance that? How do you view Najee Harris and Chase Claypool going forward?
Yeah, so I kind of was pre-tilting to you and our buddy JJ on Slack. I was
Underling? Like, where can we go with this? I don't know.
I was like, you know what? I'm on these 4 running backs, and it feels like someone in that 7,000 range that we just didn't really have a whole lot of interest was going to have a huge game. And Harris once more played 95% of the snaps. But one thing that I did notice was he played, I saw him a few times out wide. And according to Next Gen Stats, he played 60 of 73 snaps in the backfield, 7 from the slot, and 6 out wide. That is, for someone like with his build and ability, that I think more the 90+% snap rate, I think every week now is awesome. But if they're going to get him the ball like in space, or at least and if he has to be their secondary receiver, that is phenomenal. So I'm very intrigued by Najee. I will say James Washington did have a pretty good role with multiple red zone and multiple deep targets.
Nope.
We've seen him flash in the past.
Nope.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
You may have, I've not.
Okay.
With Najee, are you more horrified or impressed that he scored 21.2 FanDuel points without a touchdown? You could be impressed because 21.2 without a touchdown is amazing. We love that. We love guys who can pay off without a touchdown. But the fact that he scored 21.2 on 52 adjusted opportunities is horrifying. So are we more impressed or horrified by this?
I think horrified. The reason I didn't really want to play him was the offense.
Yeah.
And
they scored 10 points against the Bengals.
Yeah.
So like, I bet the Bengals win total over. I have a high opinion of them. It was 6.5, so that's not that high of an opinion. But like, what's going on here?
I mean, so I guess 2 things. I mean, Harris does have eventually some touchdown regression coming, but he is yet to eclipse 45 rushing yards. He's had 16, 10, and 14 attempts, so it's not like he's up at 20 carries per game, but that's concerning. We know the offense. I know the offensive line's bad, and that's saying a lot because I don't know a lot about offensive lines. But this is, again, just one of those spots where, like, yeah, Najee Harris might get fed, but you take Deontay and even Juju off the field, this offense is going to get worse, and that's not going to help him score touchdowns.
They get Green Bay next week, and that's not a good defense, especially against the rush. So name that salary for Najee, given all this.
I know it's going to go up.
Yeah. It went up.
How he was 7,500, I think.
Yeah.
That salary is probably going to be like 8,400 this week.
It's 82. I think that's fair. Like I'm not going to actively like build around him at that number, but like I get it. I think it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I also don't know if I'm going to be. That's not a game I'm going to be stacking. I don't see the total up for that one.
Oh, I will.
You will?
Oh, Aaron Jones. Come on. I was so mad he wasn't on the main slate last week. Like, let's let our boy back into our lives. I'm not gonna stack that game, but I do think that like he's viable. Chase Claypool.
I was trying to wrap my head around like why you would stack that game.
Chase Claypool, 15 targets. Let me see what his salary is. He's $6,500, so he did get an increase too. 96 yards. Again, it's not efficient, but like, you know, I don't know. I think it's similar to Claypool, where like I'm impressed but also horrified at the same time. And like that's, I don't know. It's rough, man. This offense is. You said the word toasty, and I think that that's appropriate.
Wait, Najee had a 7% rushing success rate on 14 carries.
Where were the successes? I watched a lot of that game.
So I've actually found that successful carries are very strongly correlated to rushing fantasy points, just because rushing fantasy points are just, the formula is very basic, and that's probably why he should have been expected to score 24.5 FanDuel points. So he wasn't even at like 30 if you're not gaining yardage on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's bad. Like, again, we have to like be into the volume, but like, my goodness, just bad.
He's at 20%.
Free Mason Rudolph. Free Mason Rudolph. I hate Mason Rudolph. I can't stand him, but I really want him to play.
Gosh, he's got a 20% rushing success rate on the season. That's bad.
Yeah, let's talk about more bad. T. Higgins is out. So the Bengals offense, this is good. It did revolve around Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase. Boyd had 6 targets. Chase had 5. That was out of just 18 targeted throws, which is weird. Mostly because the Bengals didn't have the ball. Like the Steelers, if you can give 34 targets to 2 dudes, obviously they have the ball a lot. The Bengals gave all 3 downfield looks to one of those 2 guys. 2 went to Boyd, 1 went to Chase. They split the 2 red zone targets. They were still run heavy, though. They had more runs and passes on early downs in the first half. Their early down first half pass rate is 54%, which is much lower than it was last year when Joe Burrow was healthy. And I think it does hurt the outlook of Chase, even if Higgins continues to miss more time. But like, he's playing well. And again, we talk about that. Like, sometimes that matters. Maybe if you're on Del Moore, it doesn't. But like, usually it does matter if you play well. So I feel like
Chase or Burrow, you mean playing well?
No, I said Chase.
Okay. I'm just clarifying because Burrow's been bad.
It's an important clarification.
Okay.
Yes. They played Jacksonville on Thursday night. And like, I think that Chase's role is good, but like, it's not as bad as the Steelers, where I'm like, I don't want to like touch this offense, but like, it's not an ideal situation either.
No, definitely not ideal. That much is certain. There's always going to be some sort of like fear of missing out with Chase, just because he's got the 4 touchdowns through 3 games, but eventually he's not going to score touchdowns. Yeah. And then there's not a whole lot behind that if Joe Burrow is going to play it. I think bottom 5 in adjusted expected points per drop back. That's just not particularly good. And you mentioned the pass rate declining. I have him at a 48% pass rate in one score situations this week before the fourth quarter. So
yeah, it's not great. Not great. I'm kind of wondering if they're worried about Burrow too. That's leading to this, but not sure.
Could be.
KJ Hamler got hurt in the first half of the Broncos and didn't return. They were already down Jerry Jeudy. They didn't have time to throw. They didn't have to throw much, I guess, because the Jets were the Jets. This would further trim the target tree to like, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, et cetera, and Tim Patrick. But it's also going to lower the projected efficiency of the offense. Tim Patrick did get 2 downfield targets on Sunday. I have this view in my head of Tim Patrick being like this like low ADOT guy, but his ADOT last year is actually like 12.5. That might have been because of Drew Lock. But like, it's not a terrible role for Patrick. They're favored against Baltimore next week, which I think is weird. But like, what's your view of this offense if we assume Hamler misses time in addition to Jerry Jeudy?
That's probably a game that I'm not going to touch a whole lot.
I bet it. The Ravens money line is plus or minus 104.
Yeah. I mean, that's more appealing. You talked already this season about how you typically just see players make perfect lineups with higher totals than 44.5.
Yeah.
It, these are the types of situations historically I would try to dig into and talk myself into a Tim Patrick at a value salary, but
Yeah.
you just have better options. So I'm not really going to sell myself on this offense at all.
Yeah, you could go with a Tim Patrick, or go with like a Manny Sanders in like the game we talked about on Thursday, and just like go with that. Like you can get good lower salary receivers in better games.
Yeah.
I have the Ravens there by 2.5 before adding in week 3 data. They'll probably get bumped down a bit, but I still think I would bet them at minus 104. Let's go through some role changes that occurred in week number 3 and some fun ones. These are good things. These are positive things. Saquon Barkley got fed in week number 3, played 84% of the snaps. He finished with 30 adjusted opportunities, which is carries plus 2x targets. He had 94 yards in scrimmage. They're on the road against New Orleans next week, which is a really tough spot. We talked about how we aren't enthusiastic about that offense, but name that salary on Saquon for this week.
So I usually do like a snap rate plus 10 or something to kind of get a baseline. Once it gets up to 80 plus, I kind of scale that back, but I would probably say like 84. I think that'd be fair for the role.
I think I'd view him similarly to Alvin Kamara this past week, where like it's a good role, but it's not a desirable game and not a desirable offense in general. And he was around 8,000. So I think that's, probably appropriate for Saquon. And he is $6,900 again.
Nice.
I don't want to use him in that matchup, but like I probably should.
Yeah, I guess like that's probably very matchup based.
Yeah. Which is fair. I guess. Because like I bumped mine down for the matchup too. So
yeah. Well, I think Joe Mixon was his salary was 6,700 this week against Pittsburgh.
That's a good comp. Yeah.
Kind of similar. Mixon has a fantastic role. Barkley's getting that after week 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's fairly similar. I wasn't really on Mixon, didn't burn me. So
yeah.
I mean, I guess
there are worse places to go, I think. But that salary is low enough to at least make him interesting. Whereas if he were higher salaried, he wouldn't be. So I'm just excited that he's back. It's fun.
Now, I mean, now we got what's Chuba Hubbard? 63.
Yeah, Michelle's 57.
He was 58.
58. Yeah, sorry, 58.
Now it's like Saquon at 69 or like Chuba Hubbard at 63.
Probably Chuba because of the game, right?
Like that's how much does the game matter? How much do you really feel confident in Hubbard's role? But that's I mean, hey, it wouldn't be week 4 NFL if we weren't talking Chuba Hubbard versus Saquon Barkley.
Woof. You are correct. Odell Beckham came back to a nice role on Sunday. The Browns didn't have to do much because the Justin Fields experiment didn't go well. But Odell had 9 of 29 targets for 77 yards. We were hesitant, I would say, on Odell entering the week. So what's your confidence level on him going forward, given that he did come back to a good role?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have 4 downfield targets, 51% air yard share for him, 144 total air yards. I think that's fantastic. I think that with this team right now, it's Nick Chubb in the right situations, although his rushing success rate's 27%. That's not ideal. Kareem Hunt, I think, is a beneficiary of needing more receiving work with those 7 targets, 44% route rate, 2 red zone rushing attempts for him compared to 4 for Chubb. So I think this is one of those, like, it's a very narrow tree of options anyway. I guess maybe Austin Hooper if you're like desperate at tight end, but I think Arrow's up on Odell Beckham for me. Arrow's also up on Kareem Hunt, but I don't know if it's just me, but every time I see the Browns on red zone, I feel like it's not going well. I just feel it's hard to shake that feeling.
Yeah. Odell's catch rate over expected was plus 9.7% according to Next Gen Stats. The problem is his expected catch rate was under 50%. So like it kind of seems like it's like, let's lob it up and see if Odell can get it, which seems like to me that they haven't quite figured out how to integrate him fully in this offense yet. So I'm feeling good about it, but I'm not feeling great about it, I think is the way I'd phrase it. I think that he's definitely a guy we can consider using. But
especially next week against at the Vikings.
Oh, baby. Ooh, Kevin Stefanski revenge game. There you go. Got that
52.5 point total, just a 1.5 point spread. That's nice.
Yeah, that's going to be a good game. I know it might be rush heavier than we'd like, but like that's going to be a fun game for sure. Jonathan Taylor's red zone role slipped away. That's something I talked about in week 1 about how, hey, you know, Taylor's gotten all the red zone work. And then week 3 is like, nope. He had 86% of the team's red zone carries entering the week and 10% of the red zone targets. But he had 1 red zone carry to Nyheim Hines 3 in week number 3. Taylor ran 11 routes compared to Hines 21. Hines led at snaps 31 to 28. So I think this confirms last week where we talked about, hey, his negative script role is still not great. And they're 2.5 points against, they're 2.5 point dogs against Jacoby Brissett next week, which is not ideal. Carson Wentz also not ideal in this game. So if you're gonna lose work in a negative script and you're tied to an offense that seems kind of likely to be in negative scripts, that's not ideal.
No, this is like Jonathan Taylor is kind of my new like I don't know, my new, I guess, Derrick Henry. I'm past that with Derrick Henry, but for me with Jonathan Taylor,
like with Taylor, it hasn't really burned you that much to not be super in on him. I think that's the difference. Like with Henry, it can burn you. It hasn't really burned you that much to not be on Taylor.
Yeah, but I'm saying like Derrick Henry's always been the guy I'm like, no, I don't want to use him because of these concerns. I'm past that with Derrick Henry because the ceiling's there and because that's actually getting a little bit better for Henry, even if it's not totally gone. For Taylor, we're looking at like he just might be out on on the sidelines on key drives, red zone trips. That's really problematic. So
yeah,
I can't get there, I think, with Jonathan Taylor. And if he scores twice, so be it. But if you're off the field for the other 50% of the snaps, the odds that you're getting to like 25 FanDuel points, that's also lower. So I'm not there, but I would be interested to hear like where you would value, like what salary would you be?
He has to be somewhere in the 6,000 range.
I was going to say there's no way there can be a 7 in front of his name.
No. If like, let's say they are at home and facing, who's a team that's like kind of feisty, but there's no shot they get a lead on you? What is a good example of this? This could be there might not be an example of that.
Detroit showed some life this week.
Detroit's kind of feisty. If he is at home,
hollow.
Watch your words. If he is at home facing Detroit, we're like, oh, that's kind of not the worst game on the planet. But also, like, you don't expect Detroit to get a lead. Like there, I'll pay 7,000 something for him, but like no other script am I going to pay that given the issues in his role.
Yeah. He's 6,600. I think he'll probably wind up being one of the optimizers' preferred like backs ish.
We'd prefer Saquon over him.
I would.
At 69.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
For sure.
By a good margin. Giovanni Bernard is the Buccaneers lead back against the Rams, probably due to the script. He had no carries, but he had 10 targets. He had a 54% or 45% snap share. Leonard Fournette played 37%. Redacted played 16%. So I feel like there are no takeaways here. I feel like it's just kind of like, I don't want to touch the Bucs backs no matter what. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bernard was out there a little bit before the game was away from them. He did get hurt late, but I don't know the severity. The thing that it brings me back to though is just no, basically with this backfield. That's kind of why I think it was relevant to bring up.
Hard pass. I agree. Brandon Ayuk, though, back to having a pretty full-time role for the 49ers. He was second on the team with 39 routes run. Deebo Samuel ran 42. George Kittle ran 33. Additionally, Kittle has just one high leverage target all year long so far, either downfield or in the red zone. He had 92 yards on Sunday, but I'm still kind of down on him despite that. As for Ayuk, he had 3 red zone targets and 1 deep. I still prefer Deebo in this offense. He's still getting some deep work, which wasn't there previously, but they're using him in more diverse ways now, which is good. Ayuk is, I would say, the word is relevant for him going forward, and they face Seattle next week. So I think we'll be talking about Ayuk there as being a guy we could consider. Name that salary for Brandon Ayuk and also Debo Samuel and George Kittle. Let's just name them all against Seattle.
And then I'll get to Jimmy Garoppolo, and then
Nope.
So Ayuk had 3 end zone targets. Dropped what should have been a touchdown for sure. Boy, this is tough for me because this is not an offense I think about historically.
I think
and
it's
they
going to be
have
a pretty high total.
Yeah. Debo was like 6,900 last time we saw him on the main slate. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd probably go like 70, 73 for Debo. Ayuk feels like a lock for like 66, and then Kittle. Lots of concerns there, honestly. I'd probably say 7,000.
I'm lower on everyone, I guess.
Okay.
So I have Debo around like 7,000. So we're pretty much in line there. Ayuk, I would put like at 58, honestly. Because I still have some concerns around it.
89% of the routes, 3 end zone targets.
Like he's competing with Debo, he's competing with Kittle in an offense that wants to run. If they can't run, maybe that's not as big of a concern. But like, I feel like if they were more pass heavy, sure, I'd be in. But like, they don't really want to do that. So I think 7,000 for Debo, 58 for Ayuk, and like 64 for Kittle. Is that mean? Like, I just need high leverage looks. He's not getting them.
All right. I mean, okay, so Ayuk is 5,700, so you were basically spot on there.
Perfect.
Debo 69 still.
Perfect.
And Kittle 67. Just kind of split the difference, I think, for us.
Yeah.
But I was just higher on Ayuk because of the end zone targets.
Where are you at on Kittle?
I said 7,000.
No, like we're like, what's your sentiment around him at that?
I don't really feel like eventually he'll burn us.
Yeah.
It's just inevitable. It seems like a lot of it's going to have to be run after the catch, which he had a nice, at least one that I remember.
If you're going to have anyone relying on run after the catch, it'd be Debo Samuel and George Kittle. So like at least that's good. That's a good thing. They can do it. But
I'm pretty sure that was like Ayuk's big thing too coming out. But I mean, honestly, for me, like with Kittle, I don't have that fear of like it's got to be Kelsey or Kittle at tight end, or else you could get like toasted. I don't like his expected FanDuel points per game is 8.3.
Yeah,
because of his underlying data.
Kelsey's facing Philadelphia next week. We get Kittle against the Seahawks. What else is on there for tight ends? Yeah, we don't have Waller next week.
We've got Hawkinson, Mark Andrews
is back in a bad game. Kyle Pitts is 58. He disappeared. Is Kyle Pitts still on the team? Like, can we confirm that he's still there? Dawson Knox, the Bills' #1 receiver, is $5,600. So, like, there's some dudes, but like,
I like how everyone just kind of a lot of. I mean, there was some disharmony, I guess, on Kyle Pitts, but he was like basically the tight end 4, tight end 5, like locked in, for season long. Yeah, some people saying that rookie tight ends aren't worth it, but it's been kind of rough. I think a lot of it goes on the offense, but
yeah, I think that the path to him being bad was Matt Ryan being dust, and that's happened like that.
But he had 3 targets this week.
He had 8 like past couple weeks. So like
he had 8, 6, and 3. Like that, it's just you would think get him just. Throw him, like I said, I was grinding all this film from him in the preseason. This one play. They
free Felipe Franks. Let Felipe Franks play quarterback, then we can talk. Then we'll talk.
Just throw him the ball out there, like they did with Jalen Waddell in the end zone for a safety. Like it was the worst play call I've ever seen, I think. But like, give Kyle Pitts some more of those to get him up to at least 5 targets in a game.
That's all we asked for is 5 targets. Let's move to situations to monitor, things you're keeping an eye on. What is something that's on your brain heading into week 4?
So one thing that jumped out was Rondale Moore and his routes. He ran 13 routes. You and I talked about this event. Inevitably, he was going to have a bust game whenever the targets didn't come on the few routes that he gets. For context, DeAndre Hopkins ran 33 routes and had 6 targets. AJ Green, 29 routes and 6 targets. Christian Kirk, 25 routes, 8 targets. And then, again, 13 routes for more, 2 targets, 1 yard. You can't you can't pretend like AJ Green does not exist if you think that he's not good. You can't, you don't, no matter how you feel, the coaches and who plays, that's what's going to matter. So it's just silly not to be super concerned about AJ Green's role while he's healthy right now.
Well, I think the reason I was averse to AJ Green is I didn't think there was a yardage upside, and he proved me wrong. So, like, I was a firm no on AJ Green. I'm a less firm no, a spongy no on AJ Green. And, like, if you can get yardage, I'll use him. Like, that's all I need.
He still can, apparently. Michael Pittman had a 33% target share in week 3, 35% in week 2. So up to 27% on the full season because he was at 12% in week 1. You and I just kind of have this running tab on Colts pass catchers, and they have not had relevancy for years now. But Pittman bucking that trend, so I like that. Give me Michael Pittman over Jonathan Taylor. I don't think this matters, but Jacoby Brissett peppered Jalen Waddell, 13 targets, and Mike Gesicki for 12. Brissett was horrible, but it's at least
favored over the Colts next week.
It's at least something.
Revenge game.
Yeah, that's true. Mac Jones, those 14 downfield attempts that we talked to, I have New England upping their first downfield pass rate to 25%, up from 2.4%. I know it was forced, but it's maybe they're just like, it's not working with the down or the check down stuff. So at least air it out and see what happens. 2 downfield roles that were really relevant to me. Khalif Raymond had 84% of Detroit's air yards in week 3 on 10 total targets, 3 deep. Deshaun Jackson, a 39% air yard share with 3 downfield targets. I'm not going to play him, but that kind of hurts me with like some of their other tertiary pieces.
Like Robert Trees, potentially.
Yeah. Speaking of that, and just quickly, because we're always looking for tight ends with some sort of a pulse, Tyler Higbee within that same team saw his route rate decrease to 67% in week 3. He was running 88% in weeks 1 and 2. That was one of the biggest declines among relevant tight ends for week 3. And then Dawson Knox, Jared Cook, and Cole Kmet all saw route rate increases to 80, 77%, and 79% respectively. Those were some of the biggest tight end route rate increases. So just something to keep in mind for the lower salaried tight ends.
Are you buying into Dawson Knox? Because I like this offense, obviously, and I'd like to get there. The problem is I know X targets will go to Diggs, X will go to Beasley, X will go to Manny. Knox has 4, 3, and 5 targets. So although I like the offense a lot, it's still a 10% target share. And like that's fine when it's like a $47 salary, but he's up in the mid 5,000s now, and that makes it tougher for me.
So I think the way that I approach tight end is it could either be really different or like absolutely the same for other people. But I think a lot of times we're looking for either extreme value at tight end and just hoping for 2 red zone targets and saying that was the checklist. I try to find higher target shares and kind of treat tight end as like a modified receiver role, even on FanDuel, where it's not a full PPR site and we need touchdowns. So Knox at that salary is not going to do it for me. He would have done it maybe for me at 4,800, but if you can't, like if tight ends don't have a clear path to like 15 FanDuel points, 14 FanDuel points, which is like 80 yards and a touchdown, he can score twice. Is he going to get to like 80 yards very often? Probably not. So
I was trying to figure out his salary and accidentally searched Diggs. They are different people. I think that now that the salary's up, I'm okay. I think the role is still too flimsy. Sticking with the Bills for my situations to monitor, talking about the running backs, Zach Moss edged ahead of Devin Singletary, played 55% of the snaps. He had 13 carries and 3 targets for 91 yards. Moss also had 32% of the red zone chances. Not enough where I'm going to use him in DFS yet, but I think it's noteworthy that he's getting closer to DFS relevancy because, again, I want shares of this offense, and Moss could get me that. Not there yet, but he looked good. I wouldn't be shocked if that role continues to move up, but don't fill out lineups under the assumption it does so, but keep an eye on it. James Robinson's role got a smidge better Sunday. He had 15 carries and 6 targets, which is 27 adjusted opportunities. They 134 yards for Robinson, 38% of the red zone chances. Still not super inclined to trust him because Carlos Hyde also got work, but at least it's an improvement for James Robinson from where it was before. I just don't want to use this offense. And they're on the Thursday slate, so I don't have to. But, like, you know, if you're playing single game, it's worth noting that his role did get a bit better. I'm still watching Darrell Patterson. You know, it was fine on Sunday. He had 42% of the snaps. That was an increase from where it was previously. He had 102 yards from scrimmage. Didn't get any red zone chances, while Mike Davis had 1. So I would say, even though Patterson had some good yardage, I would say it's mostly status quo with him. The good thing is he's still wide receiver eligible. And it might not be the smartest thing, but I will always be tempted to put a fourth running back in my lineup by putting him at receiver. You know. Hey, man. Like,
for anyone just listening, I'm kind of shaking my head.
So, okay. Let's say out of a $6,000 wide receiver, you can get 7.7 FanDuel points, 21.4, and 13.2. That's not bad. 13.2 with no touchdown last week.
Sure.
Just saying. Henry Ruggs' role is becoming more palatable, I would say.
No. Let me go back. You said what, a $6,000 receiver?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just don't see it with him yet, like, enough. I don't know. Just move past. Talk to me about Henry Ruggs.
Yeah. Henry Ruggs, 24% of the team's deep targets. He has 7 targets in back-to-back games. In terms of yardage, like receiving yardage, 2 of Ruggs' 4 highest marks between last year and this year have come in his past 2 games. So, Brandon, is Henry Ruggs on your radar yet, given his big play upside, or is it still too thin of a role for you?
He's been on the radar, just honestly for the sheer fact of there are some glimmers of hope for Derek Carr's like downfield passing. Ruggs is going to be the main beneficiary of that, especially if teams are trying to limit Darren Waller. So he's like on the radar, but he's going to be, he specifically would be someone I would only put in game stacks, not someone I would really look for as a one-off, just because I need the game to be back and forth. If the Chargers-Raiders game was on the main slate, he would be kind of like a core-ish level play.
He'd be the second best run back option behind Waller in that game.
Yeah, and I wouldn't play any other Raiders. Like, that's kind of the thing.
Right. Yeah.
On the single game slate, there's going to be plenty of discussion for him next week, but you know, in a different game, like against the Texans or something, I'm not gonna like want to have one-off exposure to Henry Ruggs.
I agree. Okay, so let's move now to some philosophical changes for this week, and looking a lot at like teams with new quarterbacks. In the first game for the Texans with Davis Mills, their early down first half pass rate is 50%. That is pretty low. Mills averaged negative 0.06 passing net expected points per dropback. So they were run heavy and bad. Both those things are not ideal for opposing teams. So it's very possible all Texans games may be cross-offs until Tyrod Taylor is back. What's your thoughts on the Texans with Davis Mills?
Well, are you crossing off the Bills next week then?
Yes.
17.5 point favorites. What about heavy home favorite running backs? They're pretty overrated. We talked about that.
I think Zach Moss is going to catch some popularity this week, and I don't think he should yet.
Yeah. Did we say what his salary was?
I don't know. I didn't think he was. I don't think he's getting enough work to be DFS viable yet, but he is.
So would you tell me what you would, because you talked about Moss more in detail. Also, you watch every Bills game as a Bills mega fan. So
they do have like Josh's Jacks, like it's a cereal at the local grocery store. I'm kind of tempted to buy some as like a joke. But like they also have it's a Pilsner called Pills Mafia. It's very, very creative.
Love a good Pilsner.
I've never had that one. So yes, Brandon, your favorite. He's 6,000. I think that's fair, but I'm not going to use him at that number.
Yeah. I mean, like Davis Mills was better than expectation.
Was he?
Yes, literally.
No.
Compared to what Carolina usually lets up, yeah.
Okay, but like expectation versus okay.
I know, I'm just saying marginally.
I have actual expectation in here. Let me tell you what I expected as the foremost authority on Davis Mills. I almost called him David. I expected negative 0.02 passing net expected points per dropback. He was at negative 0.06. He underperformed and is dead to me.
David Miller. Nobody knows more about David Miller than me, man.
I think that they're like, we need competitive, fun games. I don't think they're going to be in any until Therod's back.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Justin Fields' first start didn't go so well. He had 29 dropbacks. 9 of those were sacks. He completed 6 passes. Obviously, that is not just him. Obviously, Matt Nagy is a dolt who should be fired immediately. But it wasn't good. It was wretched. What did you see in this game, Brandon, as far as like how the Bears handled this thing?
Honestly, I think the Bears games are cross-offs until Andy Dalton's back.
You're probably right, but like that makes me so sad. Like
I was just giving you.
I don't think you're wrong.
It was rough. Like, and there's really not a whole lot. They do
get Detroit next week, so David Montgomery is him.
Speaking of the feisty team that might look like they would get out ahead, but
the Lions are playing things brilliantly this year. They keep the tank alive. They look competitive. They keep their coach looking good. Honestly, like the Lions are the biggest winners of 2021 so far.
Yeah, I would say so. That total's 44.5, close 3.5 point spread. I don't think I would have any players in that game. Unless DeAndre Swift's salary is like surprisingly low.
He's like $7,500 this week. So he's 77.
Oh my gosh.
Montgomery's 75. I think Montgomery is actually pretty viable at $7,500. Here, me pull up my handy dandy spreadsheet and pull up the weekly running back usage for David Montgomery.
Just run the ball. That's my spreadsheet.
Okay, so David Montgomery had every red zone opportunity in week 3. All 2 of them.
Okay.
He had 4 to 9 last week. You know, that's not too bad. He had 118 yards in week 1 against the Rams. He had, 28 adjusted opportunities last week, mostly with Justin Fields.
Who was their quarterback in week 1?
In week 2 was with Fields, and he had 20 adjusted opportunities.
I'm saying you just said week 1.
I was giving you the relevant data. And they're facing the Lions, who are not as good as the Browns. They're at home. I think Montgomery's in play. I
don't at that salary. At 7,500, I need to feel like a running back.
Give me a bet. Who are we betting David Montgomery versus in week 3?
Like head to head?
Yes, head to head right now.
So what I was gonna say is if I'm allocating $7,500 of my salary to a running back, I need to feel like if he gets me 25 FanDuel points, it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that's a surprise. I think that's expectation. Project.
You think David Montgomery is baseline projected
for it? Project him for it.
Just give me the under. Give me the under. No, I'll just take the under if that's our bet.
David Montgomery
or Aaron Jones.
No,
7,400.
Like no, I like Aaron Jones. It's a stupid bet. David Montgomery versus Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I was so glowing about Jonathan Taylor.
Kareem Hunt.
That's honestly closer.
It's a good game.
I'm not gonna go. You're not gonna trap me into this. Especially
David Montgomery.
Also Jim's thrown out. I've offered someone for a bet with a salary of 7,400.
Yeah, but you offered
compared to
running back on one of the best offenses in football. That's not fair.
I'm talking about
Antonio Gibson.
I'm talking about
Antonio Gibson. Chris Carson.
I hate
Chris Carson. You love Chris Carson.
I'm just talking about David Montgomery relative to his salary. of 7,500. I think that's too high. I would rather play Aaron Jones at 7,400.
Yeah, I would too. It's
I
Aaron
know
Jones.
that's not a hot take, but guess what? You're offering me guys head to head who are salaried at 1,000 lower than him. That should kind of make my point. If those are the guys you feel confident,
I'm trying to find a stupid bet for you. I'm not trying to like get ahead. I said Antonio Gibson. He's right by him.
Okay, I'll do
Christian McCaffrey.
I will conditionally do David Montgomery against Antonio Gibson if you give me Derrick Henry against Patrick Ricard.
That's not the same. It's a $400 difference.
But I'm not going to play Antonio Gibson anyway.
Okay, we're going to find a bet for David Montgomery this week. It can be over under FanDuel points. Like, let's say
25.
15,
you set
15.
the line.
No, I said that's the projection. That's not a bet. Like, you don't bet at the projection. There's variance in there. There's touchdown variance.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. If you can get David Montgomery to 25 FanDuel points, this is baseline projection.
Give me odds. David Montgomery scores 20 points. What are the odds?
Give me more time in the week to run those.
When you run your Sims, get to 20 points for David Montgomery, and I will potentially never bet something without knowing the odds. So I will get back to you once I know the odds, but I want to hear them first based on your simulations at the sports book of Brandon Gadula.
Yeah.
The Gadul book at the Gadul book, and I will let you know if I'm taking it.
Boy, I don't see how Montgomery gets the 25.
Okay.
He's got to score twice.
I said 20. 20 is our baseline for
you said, but I said
25 is the projection. I want to bet 20 though. So give me the odds on 20. Come back to me. I'll see what the odds are, and then I'll decide if I want to bet it.
I love how this went from if I'm allocating 7,500 of cap to a running back, I need to feel like it wouldn't be surprising if he gets 25. And then you said that's his baseline projection. And
I was joking.
And then you're betting me at 20 FanDuel points. So if the over-under is 20 FanDuel points, like that's not enough at 7,500. That's the original point, and it still stands.
Who at $7,500 is like minus money to go over 20 points?
That's the thing, is it's not a good tier again. So I'm not gonna force myself into playing David Montgomery.
Alvin Kamara is not minus money against the Giants in 9,000.
This has just evolved into something completely different.
Give me the odds once you run your Sims, and I will decide if I want to bet it. Okay. Give me the odds based on your Sims, and I will torture your Sims with my amazing knowledge of David Montgomery, who has the feet of Saquon Barkley. The power of Ezekiel Elliott.
I was gonna say Zeke's 7,000. He's gonna play 85% of the snaps.
There's no Tony Pollard on the Bears, though.
David
Montgomery is Tony Pollard and Zeke. So what else could you want? You took some notes on who changed their philosophy in one-score games. Who were the biggest movers there?
Yeah, so I'm having pace update issues, but I've at least pulled one-score pass rate through the first three quarters for teams. Some big notes, I think, are Atlanta moving from 53% to 68% in week 3. Again, 53% weeks 1 and 2 combined. So I think it's a positive for Calvin Ridley, who had 4 red zone targets this week. It's kind of the only positive for Calvin Ridley at this point. The Rams from 63% to 75%, which is awesome. I know is dependent on the defense, but I think we can trust that the Rams are going to throw the ball a lot regardless, and that they're going to do the right thing depending on matchup, which is really fun. Cleveland went from 46% to 58%, which I think might speak to the impact of Odell Beckham on the offense. Could be good for Kareem Hunt as well. And then New England from 63% to 74%. It's not enough. Maybe Jacoby Myers, that's really it, but it's noteworthy. Jacksonville really reversed their approach, 73% to 43%. I think that kind of kills bring back appeal if they're going to try to run the ball whenever they possibly can. Las Vegas was kind of noteworthy, 68% to 55%.
When you got Peyton Barber, of course you're going to run more.
Yeah. Because, Derek Carr's airing it out, playing really well. You want to start establishing the run. Cincinnati, I think we talked about.
Yep.
And then Tennessee we also talked about, which would probably speak to the loss of A.J. Brown, but if they're just going to run the ball a lot, that's really difficult. And Derrick Henry, 10,200 next week.
Who do they play? Oh, the Jets. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. That line is short.
Yeah.
I don't I don't know if it's wrong necessarily. I'm not saying this is not a Ravens situation. I'm like saying, hey, you should bet the Ravens. That is 7.5. What do I have it at before adding in week 3? I have it at 8.4. So
like the thing for Henry that we're going to be staring at is there's a chance. There's the thing that I always try to think about with Derrick Henry is what are the odds that they're going to just be 7 to 10 to 14 points down or something like that within the first half? That seems like 0. But what are the odds that they're up 21 to nothing at halftime?
Yeah,
and the Jets have no life, and
that's why we need to be wary of games with big spreads.
Yeah,
I think if it settles around 7.5 and stays there, then okay, that's fine. But like, I would still prioritize closer games, I think.
Yeah, especially at that salary. There's just not a whole lot of wiggle room for him.
Exactly. Okay, let's go to our notes to future me. I think that for next week's slate, it's kind of similar to this one where there are some shootouts that we like. We can feel good about those and potentially buy into them and potentially some undersalaried backs as well. So what are you writing as your note to future you for week number 4?
Honestly, looking more at these totals already, there in the spreads, there are numerous cross-offs.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a pretty distinct divide between games that...
Would you use a player in Miami versus Indy if they had a negative salary? Like, would you consider it then?
I would use Michael Pittman.
At a negative salary?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Jacksonville, Cincy.
What's Thursday?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Washington, Atlanta.
Corey Davis revenge game. If it weren't for the Corey Davis revenge game and Derrick Henry could be a cross-off. Corey Davis is guaranteed at least like 30 points. That's his projections, 30 FanDuel points.
Well, I know you're locking in David Montgomery, but like Detroit, Chicago, I might not have anybody.
I'll have Montgomery.
Like, I think my note, like the Giants and Saints, I guess Saquon.
Yeah.
I think my note to future self is don't fall into the fear of value for these like low total games. And then also if Darrell Henderson's out, play Sony Michel.
Yes, that is the primary one because Michel will be a lock button there. What I would say is more of a lesson that from week 3 than something to look forward to week 4 is like, don't be afraid to stack the secondary shootouts, like the ones that may not have the highest totals. Kind of like we talked a lot about Bills Washington on Thursday.
Yeah.
I had Manny Sanders, but I didn't have enough. Like I didn't have Antonio Gibson. He had a really nice game. But like, be more aggressive with those second tier, like the Browns Vikings game next week. The Panthers Cowboys game could be in that range. I know the Panthers defense is very good, but like, those could be games to stack. So that, and also the Michel thing and Chuba Hubbard. We'll see on that one as well. That is all that we have here for today for our week 3 recap. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page. We are here every Monday at 9 a.m. and every Thursday at 10 a.m. recording our podcast on air. If you want the video side, we also have it up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. After that, find that by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13. But one question for you before we leave. Which wide receiver do you think has the highest FanDuel salary for the week 4 main slate? I know it's hard with all the teams, but...
Probably Tyreek.
No, he's second.
Behind?
Cooper Kupp.
Yes!
Cooper Kupp's salary is $8,600 and Tyreek Hill is $84.
And you know what? That is totally fair for Cooper Kupp. Like, that's how good his role has been. Good for you, Cooper Kupp.
He ain't gonna score all these touchdowns forever.
I mean, he could. They're going to give him the ball 4 times in the red zone. He could.
Feels like teams just kind of forget about
him.
Why
is Tyreek only 82? I know teams are like selling out to like stop him and stuff like that.
He's had like 2 down games in a row.
I don't care.
I don't either, but I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, you're right. Yeah, good for Cooper Kupp. We've come around. We've come a long way, friend. We're now friends, best friends, Cooper Cup and I. I'm on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this week. Good luck to you in week number 4. We'll talk to you once again on Thursday to preview that slate. This has been Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.